National Desk, America's News Now.
What we learned in 2022 is that candidates that bury their head in the sand really suffer for it.
Abortion politics, the controversial issue, and its possible impact this election season. Why finding out where candidates stand isn't always so easy. Plus,
what an awesome way to come back after 8-year battle.
One and done. The high school coach who took his fight to pray on the field all the way to the Supreme Court, calling it quits. And later,
when duty called, Larry did everything to answer.
A hero's honor. The Vietnam veteran who risked his own life to save others in a firefight. Plus, driver data. A new report says automakers are spying on who's behind the wheel, where your information could end up.
From the nation's capital, this is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Dee Dee Gatton, and on this weekend edition, we take a look at the big headlines of the week and look ahead at what to expect, starting with the 4 big stories we've been following this week. Rapid enrollment, how many students have signed up for the new student loan repayment plan? Building boom, how many new apartments could be available for rent within the U.S. this year? Plus, the drop in demand for mortgages. Social media's impact on kids' mental health. The states where schools are stepping in. But first, another impeachment developing now. House Republicans say their investigation into the Biden family is leading up to an inquiry of President Biden. At the same time, the U.S. government is set to run out of money at the end of the month, which could lead to a shutdown. The National Desk, Christine Frizzell, breaks down how congressional leaders are dealing with the issues.
The quiet lull of Capitol Hill serving as a contrast for what to expect in the weeks to come.
If you look at all the information we've been able to gather so far, it is a natural step forward that you would have to go to an impeachment inquiry.
That impeachment inquiry into President Biden raising accusations GOP lawmakers are doing the bidding of former President Trump, who posted on social media, "Impeach the bum," adding, "They did it to us."
I will not vote to fund the government unless we have passed an impeachment inquiry on Joe Biden.
Speaking of spending, that top priority for lawmakers could already be stuck in quicksand. One of the most vocal members of the House Freedom Caucus providing us a preview before departing for August recess.
We control the power of the purse.
Texas Congressman Chip Roy imploring his Republican colleagues to use that power to try to get concrete changes made at the FBI, with social policies in the military, and to push forward a border bill passed along party lines in the House.
Or will we curl up in a little ball like we tend to do every single year and say, oh no, they're going to criticize us for a government shutdown?
In the Senate, Majority Leader Chuck Schumer already making clear in a letter to his colleagues, quote, House Republican extremists will be to blame for forcing a government shutdown, a prospect some warn is already weighing on American business owners.
They are worried. They're very worried. What businesses need to be successful is predictability. You know, predictability, some semblance of, regular order.
Regular order not predicted to be widely present on Capitol Hill.
We have one bill out of 12 completed because extremists are holding your conference hostage.
The hostage taking and finger pointing, though, expected in full force. I'm Christine Frizzell reporting for the National Desk, America's News Now.
The U.S. deficit is now projected to nearly double from about $1 trillion last year to $2 trillion for the fiscal year ending September 20th. The stunning projected figure largely due to lower tax revenue, higher interest rates, and high inflation. The deficit was a record $3.1 trillion in 2020 due to pandemic-era spending and borrowing. To your money now, the Mortgage Bankers Association reports total applications for new mortgage loans fell 2.9% last week compared to the week before. That's despite a mortgage rate drop, though the benchmark 30-year fixed was still on average 7.2%, and home prices have dropped since last year's highs. The U.S. is also experiencing a building boom. According to a new report by Rent Cafe, construction on new apartments is hitting a 50-year high, with nearly 460,000 rental units expected to be built across the U.S. this year. 1.2 million new apartments were added over the past 3 years, and another 1 million are expected through 2025. Developing now, 4 million people have enrolled in President Biden's Save Student Loan Repayment Plan. Since it launched in August, the new income-driven program promises to lower monthly bills. A group of GOP lawmakers have introduced a bill to try to overturn the plan. Student loan payments are set to resume next month following a years-long pandemic-related pause. New details on an increase in the number of abortions in states geographically near other states that ban the procedure after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade last year, which could be attributed to border hopping patients. According to reproductive rights research and policy group Guttmacher Institute, Colorado saw an 89% increase in 2023 compared to 2020, equivalent to nearly 6,000 more abortions. Illinois saw a 69% jump, an increase of 18,000 abortions, and abortions increased by 124%, or roughly 3,200 in South Carolina, though the state just adopted a new ban last month. The 2024 presidential campaign could have a much different feel than 50 years of previous elections. That's because it's the first since the court overturned Roe versus Wade. The National Desk chief political correspondent Scott Thuman shows us why voters have plenty to sort out.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks so much. Yeah. On the campaign trail, few subjects can separate candidates as much as the debate over abortion. And on the right, conservatives often clamor for a hardline approach, while a majority of Democrats want that decision left to the mother, not Washington. Though where they stand on the true wedge issue not always so clear, including at the recent Republican debate.
A 15-week ban is an idea whose time has come.
When it comes to a federal ban, let's find consensus.
Wisconsin is going to do it different than Texas. I understand Iowa and New Hampshire are going to do different.
Anti-abortion groups argue candidates need to be more definitive about their positions.
What we learned in 2022 is that candidates that bury their head in the sand really suffer for it because voters just don't know where they are. They don't trust them on the issue, and they really want that clarity.
A recent survey shows 28% of those questioned will only vote for candidates who share their position on abortion, the highest number Gallup has recorded. The Supreme Court's overturning of Roe versus Wade last year, sending control back to the states, muddied the waters when it comes to specifics, including for the current president. While anti-abortion groups have criticized President Biden for not saying whether he supports any limits, his team just launched a $25 million ad campaign, painting Republicans' positions as extreme and out of touch.
I would literally sign the most conservative pro-life legislation that they can get through Congress.
There has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form.
President Biden and Vice President Harris are determined to restore Roe v. Wade,
which has on both sides stoked passions and motivated voters to show up in the past and likely will again in 2024. In Washington, Scott Thuman for the National Desk.
Developing now, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration is looking to recall about 52 million airbag inflators over concerns they could explode and seriously injure drivers and passengers. The agency officially declared the airbag inflators from ARC Automotive defective after an 8-year investigation into the product, which is linked to at least 7 injuries and 2 deaths. NHTSA originally asked ARC to recall the inflators themselves, but the company said it did not believe a defect existed. The agency will now hold a public meeting on October 5th, which it must do before it asks for a court-ordered recall. Your car could be spying on you. A new report from the Mozilla Foundation found most major manufacturers are selling your information, with all 25 brands studied receiving a failing grade for consumer privacy. Nissan and Volkswagen were among the worst offenders, collecting data on drivers' health, age, and gender. Right now, legal experts are considering which social media regulations could violate the First Amendment. This week, the fact-check team investigated the laws on the books governing how minors can use social media.
A federal judge temporarily blocked Arkansas from enforcing a new law that would require minors to get parental consent when creating a social media account. I'm with Courtney from the Fact Check team. Now, we've seen studies linking social media to mental health issues. Schools are now stepping in to address this. What exactly are they doing?
So around 500 school districts have joined a federal lawsuit against the parent companies of Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, and YouTube. For context, there are over 13,000 school districts in the U.S. They say teachers and administrators waste valuable time dealing with cyberbullying and other disciplinary issues, as well as mental health problems that all stem from social media use. Now, the first lawsuit against these platforms was filed by Seattle Public Schools back in January, and we've seen similar efforts in states like Florida, New Jersey, and Maryland.
So have social media companies responded to this?
They have. They say that the content allegedly causing harm is protected under Section 230, which says that internet companies are not responsible for content published on third-party platforms. School districts, however, say that a product, unlike content, is not protected.
It's an interesting argument. Courtney, thank you. And for more on this Fact Check team topic, including links to Courtney's sources, scan the QR code on your screen or visit us online at thenationaldesk.com.
Coming up next year on the National Desk, shaking up the race to the White House. The National Desk Scott Thuman hit the campaign trail with GOP candidate Vivek Ramaswamy. Plus, a new game plan. Why a high school football coach at the center of a Supreme Court prayer case is resigning. In a crowded field of politicians all aiming for the White House, it can be a challenge to stand out. But one Republican candidate has found a way to steal that spotlight, at least for the moment. Vivek Ramaswamy. Our chief political correspondent, Scott Thuman, spent time with the party's youngest major candidate in the first of our campaign conversations.
Thank you. Walk even a few feet with Vivek Ramaswamy through these New Hampshire fairgrounds, and you're struck by how much has changed in just a matter of months.
What's going on, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing great.
People are responding like wildfire to it, and I think it's really lifting us up.
You said wildfire.
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Well, frankly, I mean, we've gone from not 0%, but 0.0% in the polls in March to second place in many national polls now. And I think that that's still with many people in this country not yet really knowing who I am.
Can I get a picture with you?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Now he's attracting crowds seeking selfies and loaded with questions about where this multimillionaire entrepreneur and author stands on the issues.
What does it mean to be American? It means we believe in the ideals of the American Revolution.
Aboard his campaign bus, questions about his abundance of ambition. You've never held any public office.
That's right.
What makes you think you deserve to have the highest job in the land? Why not run for a senator?
Different skill set required for that. I mean, I think that being a U.S. senator requires getting into the sausage making of partisan politics. What I think we require in the U.S. presidency right now is someone who has an independent vision and somewhat of a disregard for the norms of Washington, D.C.
You tweeted out that clip of yourself, if you recall, 20 years ago, asking Al Sharpton.
Of all the Democratic candidates out there, why should I vote for the one with the least political experience?
Doesn't that feel a little hypocritical now?
Well, 20 years later, you know what? I've changed my mind on a lot of things. Turns out I don't believe everything I did at the age of 18.
You said that former President Trump's the greatest president of this century. So why should people vote for you when you've said this guy's number one?
So far. However, we have to aspire to more. I think I'm single-handedly best equipped to reunite this country.
The 38-year-old who made a fortune in the biotech industry wants to make an even bigger mark in Washington with radical proposals like disbanding the FBI, IRS, and Department of Education. He's been attacked for his plans to let Russia retain some captured parts of Ukraine, hesitation to call Putin a war criminal, and his idea of eventually scaling back support to Taiwan against China. You've heard people say amateur hour. You heard Nikki Haley say no foreign policy, and it shows. How do you dispel that?
So if somebody's crashing your car for the last 25 years, maybe you don't want to turn over your keys to the same people to drive it again. I think I have the clearest path to avoid World War III while still asserting American interests.
The brash policy stances with an equally bold personality.
Snap back to reality.
We've seen you rapping, we've seen you playing tennis shirtless. You a bit of an attention hound?
I'm a bit of an energy person who likes to work out. It's our job to let the people of this country know who we are and what we stand for.
All right, lightning round, you ready?
Okay.
Finish the wall or don't.
Finish it.
Yes or no to an assault weapons ban?
No.
Abortion, what should be the national standard on limits?
I am pro-life. I am also pro-10th Amendment. This is a state's issue.
Term limits for members of Congress?
Yes.
Is President Biden too old?
His ideas are too old.
Should transgender athletes be able to compete against people of a different birth gender?
Men should not be competing against women in women's sports competitions, period.
Are you binge watching anything right now?
No.
Last one. Eminem asked you to stop using his song. Is your rapping career over?
Oh, no, we might just be getting warmed up. Good seeing you.
And Scott's campaign conversations will continue all election season long. We put in requests with each of the candidates from both parties to bring you their stories too. Developing right now, the CDC warns that RSV cases are on the rise. The respiratory virus is the leading cause of hospitalization among babies in the U.S. The agency is reporting an uptick in severe cases in Florida and Georgia. The CDC recommends doctors use new immunizations for newborns and older adults this fall and consider testing high-risk patients with symptoms of RSV, COVID-19, and the flu. New details now. A Seattle high school football coach who took his fight to pray on the field to the Supreme Court is stepping down. The National Desk Jackie Kent talked with Joe Kennedy about his resignation and what he plans to do now.
It's a milestone Bremerton coach Joe Kennedy says he worked toward for nearly a decade. Praying on the field at the home opener, his job reinstated after winning his Supreme Court case.
What we asked for from the Supreme Court and all the courts was just to be able to be a coach and to be able to pray after a football game. Both of those were accomplished, and I've gotten what I've asked for. Anything beyond that is just a plus.
He had public support for his highly anticipated return to the sidelines.
I would be very disappointed if he was not coaching after this game. Oh yeah, I'd be very upset.
Definitely hope that he stays. Now, 5 days later, his resignation comes with a statement saying he believes he can best advocate for constitutional freedom and religious liberty by working outside the school system. He's now back in Florida, he says, to take care of his ailing father-in-law. Did you ever intend to stay the whole season?
Yeah, well, I had a one-way ticket. I had, that's what we planned, is to stay up there in Washington.
He did what he believed in, and I see nothing wrong with that.
Others across Bremerton told us off camera they're glad he's gone, stating the Supreme Court case was a waste of time and taxpayer money. Some are worried about a potential impact on the players.
He's kind of leaving his team behind. It is kind of sad and probably going to mess them up a little bit.
But Kennedy doesn't see it that way.
I think they're just going to look at it as, hey, Coach fought this long to get here, and he got here, and we got to win a football game with him. And I think that's a great way to go out.
And still ahead here, saved by the doorbell, how a woman helped a neighbor who came knocking at her door save a life. Plus, you can't rush Mother Nature, why raisin farmers in California are facing a setback in production. The National Desk team of reporters is bringing you the headlines from coast to coast. We're taking the pulse of America, starting in Ohio, where one Columbus woman's idea to put Narcan in her mailbox ended up saving a life.
Somebody's dying out here. I need you to call the emergency room.
Destiny Bellis says she moved to her East Columbus neighborhood back in August. After noticing a large drug presence, she started keeping naloxone in her mailbox just in case a stranger needed it. It's used to revive someone overdosing on opioids.
911.
There's a Narcan in my mailbox.
Okay.
Just a week after placing it in her mailbox, it was used. Bella says more people should have naloxone and not be afraid to pick it up and give it out.
Most people won't grab it because they're so judgmental at first glances. They won't take the time out of their day to get to know somebody. Just gotta let people know people still care. It's not all hate out here. There's still love. People still love you out here.
Thank you.
Narcan, go ahead.
All right.
Now over to Tennessee, car thefts in Nashville are up nearly 50% since last year, according to recent data from the Metro Nashville Police Department. So far, over 3,000 cars have been stolen this year, and that's up from a little over 2,000 last year. Metro Police say the national trend of stealing Kias and Hyundais is partly to blame. One man whose Kia was recently stolen in Nashville said he was unaware of the trend until after his car was targeted.
Well, you don't think it like it would happen to you, but I was wrong.
Good reminder, and to cut down on car thefts, Metro Police have launched a campaign urging people to take common sense measures to protect their property. They say half of all cars stolen involve the owners leaving their keys inside the vehicle. In California, Fresno County's raisin grape harvest is running behind schedule this season. Normally by this time, raisin grower Stephen Cardosa says he's close to wrapping up the season. But this year's unusually rainy winter has impacted the ripening of the crop. Before the grapes are dry, they have to be sweet, and Cardosa says you can't rush Mother Nature.
Lately, these cooler weathers are also impacting sugar uptake in the vines. So people tend to stop irrigating and try to drive their sugar ups on their grapes so their quality is a little bit better.
According to the latest Fresno County crop report, 169,000 tons of raisins were produced in 2021. The crop value was nearly $372 million. Still ahead here on the National Desk, America's News Now, honoring a hero. 55 years after a daring mission, a Vietnam veteran receives the military's highest honor. Taking a look at the top trending stories on our website right now, Bruce Springsteen is postponing the remainder of his September tour dates with the E Street Band. The Hall of Fame inductee is seeking treatment for peptic ulcer disease, but promised fans he would be back on the road soon. A former employee of a hotel on the Las Vegas Strip is being accused of stealing more than $770,000 over the course of several months. The suspect was arrested last week, but not before allegedly buying a new home and taking luxury vacations. Those stories and much more available right now at thenationaldesk.com.
The valor that Lieutenant Taylor displayed that night was extraordinary. But to Larry Taylor, it was simple. He would never leave a man behind, now or ever.
Army Captain Larry Taylor was formally inducted into the Hall of Heroes this week after receiving the Medal of Honor for saving 4 fellow soldiers in 1968. The room at the Pentagon is dedicated to all the service members who have earned the nation's top military honor. Through tears, Captain Taylor shared his recollection of the event and called the honor a dream come true.
I don't know what we could have done to make it any better. We didn't lose a man. And everybody we came with went home with us.
So touching. Captain Taylor flew over 2,000 combat missions during his time in the military. Ahead in our next half hour, 2 emerging factors that could cause you pain at the pump. The possible gas industry impacts when we come back. Plus, the convicted murderer asking for a new trial. Why Alex Murdaugh says the jury in his case was tainted. You're watching the National Desk, America's News Now. You can catch us live weekdays from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time, and anytime online at thenationaldesk.com. We'll be right back.
The National Desk, America's News Now.
From the nation's capital, this is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Dee Dee Gatton, and keeping an eye on your money and potential price impacts at the pump. Two big headlines this week could mean we'll be paying more. First, the Biden administration is canceling a batch of controversial oil and gas leases in Alaska's Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. And Saudi Arabia and Russia's plans to extend production cuts. The National Desk Dr. Ellen Ashar looks into whether it will mean a return to pain at the pump.
More than 400,000 acres in a wildlife refuge in northeastern Alaska will be protected from oil and gas drilling, at least for now. The Biden administration's announcement this week that it's canceling 7 open Trump-era drilling leases is drawing praise from those who want to protect habitat for wildlife and disapproval from Alaska's Republican lawmakers. Senator Dan Sullivan claims the president is targeting his state, Senator Lisa Murkowski calling it unconscionable. The Energy Word's Dan Dicker is doubtful it will have any real impact on oil prices, largely because the leases did not prompt much drilling in the first place.
It's not really been a tremendous boon in terms of either production or revenues for either the oil companies or for Alaska, unfortunately.
Major oil companies passed on the opportunity to bid on the leases when they came on the market at the end of the Trump administration. Dicker says environmental protection concerns are just one reason many have gotten out of the Arctic altogether. Another is melting ice.
It actually makes it more difficult to solidify, to kind of anchor those rigs and get them in there.
On the other side of the world, a separate development that's much more likely to cause pain at the pump. Saudi Arabia and Russia announced they're extending oil production cuts of 1.3 million barrels per day through the end of the year. Average gas prices in the U.S. have been hovering around $3.80 per gallon for the past month.
Gas prices, they are ridiculous.
I think you'll see, again, triple-digit prices in oil and, $5.5 gasoline by the second quarter of 24.
Those kinds of price jumps could certainly make energy costs a central issue in the 2024 election, which could hurt President Biden. More broadly, a new CNN poll finds 64% believe his policies have failed to improve the economy. In Washington, I'm Atrell Nashar for the National Desk, America's News Now.
The chances of the U.S. falling into a recession over the next 12 months falls to 15%. That's according to Goldman Sachs. The number is similar to the historical average for any given year. The report suggesting wages will grow faster than prices, overcoming rate increases from the Federal Reserve. The Bloomberg consensus is that the U.S. has a 60% chance of recession. Developing now, a group of top military leaders are condemning Senator Tommy Tuberville's decision to block leadership promotions within the military. The secretaries of the Army, Navy, and Air Force penning an op-ed in the Washington Post, saying in part the prolonged uncertainty and political battles over these military nominations will have a corrosive effect on the force. It's time to lift this dangerous hold and confirm our senior military leaders. The Pentagon says it is in contact with Congress over the holds.
The department does remain engaged with the Congress. I'm not going to read out individual conversations that have been had with various legislators, other than to say again, we have publicly and privately communicated the impact.
So far, Tuberville has blocked more than 300 promotions in protest of a Pentagon abortion policy, which reimburses service members if they travel out of state for abortion care. New York Governor Kathy Hochul recently met with President Biden's chief of staff as the migrant crisis worsens in her state. The National Desk's Jen Jeffcoat sat down with former acting commissioner of Customs and Border Protection, Mark Morgan, to discuss the governor's plans.
A readout of this meeting between Governor Hochul and the president's chief of staff, Jeff Zients, shows that they talked about a plan to help eligible migrants living there apply for work permits. But of course, few details on how this would be executed. Zients did not offer any of those details. First, though, what is your reaction to this?
First, I think it's important to point out that the governor wanted to meet with the president of the United States, and that didn't happen. And I think that's significant to point out. because look, Jan, as we are right now going through the worst border security crisis in our lifetime, which is well beyond just the fact we have a historic level of illegal immigration that's happening, but also with that comes drugs, criminals that are pouring in among the 1.6 million known gotaways, as well as potential national security threats. So this goes well beyond just the crisis that emits from illegal immigration, yet the President of the United States refuses to meet with her, pretends that it doesn't exist, and continues to mislead the American people that there's nothing to see here. But second, with respect to the meeting, they weren't asked, and they weren't asking the Biden administration to actually stop the crisis and secure the border. They're simply asking for more U.S. taxpayer dollars to manage the crisis after it's already in the United States, rather than take that funding and secure the border and stop the crisis from entering the country in the first place.
Meantime, the FBI investigating a case where a smuggler tied to ISIS helped more than a dozen migrants from Uzbekistan enter the U.S. from Mexico. Mark, this was so urgent that a classified intelligence report was sent to top cabinet officials. And I read this morning, they still have not located every single person that was allowed to enter the U.S. in regards to this. How does something like this happen?
I think we've forgotten why the Department of Homeland Security was created, as well as Customs and Border Protection in 2003. The department was created specifically to react to the attacks on 9/11, to have a whole of government approach to secure our nation's border and prevent our nation's border from being vulnerable to a national security threat. We've forgotten why the department was created and why CBP was created and why it's happening right now. How this is happening is because right now our frontline resources are overwhelmed. In the past 33 months, they've encountered over 6.7 million illegal aliens, as well as 1.6 million known gotaways. They're overwhelmed, and their mandate right now, their primary mission is not their law enforcement duty to secure our border. It's to process and release illegal aliens as fast as human possibly to avoid political optics. When you've trained your mission to that being now what is mandated of you, this is inevitable. It's going to happen.
Yeah, speaking of which, the number of migrants on the FBI's terrorist screening database is at record highs. And some law enforcement and intelligence officials are concerned about an unusual increase in the number of migrants from Central Asia. Mark, when there are a number of migrants coming in from a region not known to be a major source of refugees, shouldn't that spark more investigation by border authorities?
Jan, I'm glad you're bringing this up. This should spark the president and DHS Secretary Mayorkas to change and reverse course on their open border policies. Jan, we've talked about it before. Not only have we in the past 33 months encountered a historic high number of illegal aliens on the FBI's terror screening database, which should be alarming if that's not enough. But as you mentioned, they've received in the past same 33 months, they've encountered illegal aliens from 170 different countries. Many of those countries, the U.S. intelligence community are concerned with respect to their ties to terrorism. We refer them to them as special interest aliens. This is a very serious threat that this administration is not being honest with American people. At the end of the day, what's happening at our borders should spark this entire nation to say enough is enough. Jan, we have a significant vulnerability, a dangerous vulnerability happening right now at our borders, and this administration is pretending like it doesn't exist.
Former Acting Commissioner of Customs and Border Protection and visiting fellow at FAIR and the Heritage Foundation, Mark Morgan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Attorneys for convicted murderer Alex Murdaugh are requesting a new trial. They're accusing the court clerk of tampering with the jury by telling them not to trust Murdaugh's testimony or evidence presented by the defense.
We never considered the likelihood, as reported to us by the jurors, that the clerk of court would go in to the sanctity of the jury room before he testified and tell the jurors, don't be fooled by his testimony.
Murdaugh's attorneys say Hill betrayed her oath of office for money and fame. Their client is currently serving life in prison for the murders of his wife and son. A popular opioid overdose antidote is hitting the shelves this month, and many stores like CVS and Walmart will now offer Narcan over the counter. The Fact Check team has new numbers on overdose deaths that the antidote could help prevent.
Overdose deaths are at a record high in the U.S. More than 75% of deaths in 2021 involved opioids. I'm back with Courtney from the Fact Check team. And we hear a lot about synthetic opioids, things like fentanyl, for example. They account for nearly 88% of overdose deaths. But there's also been an increase in deaths from fake pills. What's that about?
That's exactly right. The CDC released this study last week, and it found that the number of overdose deaths from fake pills has more than doubled in the last few years. Now, the majority of deaths were people younger than 35 who were taking what they thought was Xanax or oxycodone. These fake pills are typically made to look like real ones, but instead of getting them at a pharmacy, they're bought on the street, and they contain things like illegal fentanyl or other drugs that the person didn't mean to use.
Illicit fentanyl was detected in about 93% of those overdose deaths. Are there any measures that can be taken to slow this down?
It's really tough to control because, of course, a lot of it is illegal, but there are a few things like only using legitimate pills from a pharmacy with a prescription, using fentanyl test strips, or having Narcan on hand. Fake pills are also being marketed towards younger people, even children, so youth education is also an important step.
All right, Courtney, thank you. And for more on this Fact Check team topic, including links to Courtney's sources, scan the QR code on your screen or visit us online at thenationaldesk.com.
So to come here, our team of correspondents breaks down this week in Washington, from a possible Trump-Biden matchup in 2024 to an uptick in COVID cases, reigniting the mask mandate debate.
And welcome back. Our Washington Bureau covers the nation's capital every day to report on the important issues facing the country and how they impact you. The Bureau's correspondents are here with their insights on the stories they've been covering. Another week, another poll with concerning data for President Biden. Chief Political Correspondent Scott Thuman, what are the political headwinds Biden is facing?
Yeah, Steve, some big red flags for Biden when you look ahead to if this is a preview of what he's going to face in 2024 or not when voters go to the polls. Some deeply negative views in this CNN polling. I just want to read you some of the numbers. His approval rating down to 39%. 58% say he's made economic conditions worse. 70% say things in the country are just going badly in general. Only 28% of those polled say that he inspires some sort of confidence. That's troubling because that number is actually down from 7 more points in March. So he's seeing that go on the wrong direction. And then 2/3 of Democrats want someone else other than Biden on the ticket. So a lot of issues there. Why, you ask? His age is one, the economy is another factor. But the bottom line is, despite all of that, there's still no clear leader between he and former President Trump in that potential matchup, Steve.
And national correspondent Christine Frizzell, it's not just that, it's the fact that a majority of Americans don't even want to see a Biden-Trump matchup. It has some wondering if there's a third party maybe that would emerge in the next year.
Yeah, certainly we're hearing voices like Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia, former Republican governor of Maryland, Larry Hogan, and the No Labels group. They're talking about the possibility that a third party candidate may be what brings this country together. And what does it? You know, Scott was just talking about the poll, some of the headwinds for Biden. Former President Trump has seen similar polls where you have the majority of the Republican Party. He's doing well with them, but a lot of them also say they don't want him to run for re-election. So you would think that would be, prime time for a third candidate, somebody that everyone, at least in the middle, can get behind. But it's really interesting, too, because of the unpopularity of these two candidates, people are very concerned about, quote, wasting their vote. There's a real fear factor. And so political analysts I spoke to said, likely voters will go to the polls, even if they're holding their nose, not so much to vote for the candidate that they want, but to make sure the candidate they really don't want doesn't get that vote. So it's really interesting. We think about the Ross Perot's of the world in 1992 who got 19% of the vote. that was a time when he was running against Bill Clinton and George H.W. Bush, people that were generally seen as likable. So it's going to be very interesting to see if this third-party discussion continues.
Well, the discussion probably will continue, but we know there are a lot of hurdles for third-party candidates. Ross Perot had to spend a lot of money and a lot of time to get on all 50 state ballots in order to be a viable candidate. So we'll keep a close eye on that. Meanwhile, as a new strain of COVID results in more cases, it's also resulting in more chatter about possible mask mandates. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins, tell us about that.
We're already seeing some of those mandates go into effect. Hospital systems in New York are putting mask mandates in place, and schools, such as some universities across the country, and most recently an elementary school in a Maryland suburb outside of Washington, D.C., imposing a 10-day mask mandate after seeing a spike of COVID cases there. The First Lady, Jill Biden, testing positive for COVID earlier this week. Joe Biden, however, has tested negative, and he's been repeatedly taking tests ahead of his trip to the G20 summit in India. But this is reigniting the mask debate. Should we mask? Should we not mask? And people are deeply divided on this issue. The CDC still has recommendations in place after you've been exposed to wear a mask for 10 days. So President Biden is doing that, even though he's been testing negative. That's raising a lot of questions on if those CDC guidelines are possibly outdated, since studies have shown that there's not really a lot of benefit in masking. A big study earlier this year showed it really doesn't matter if you wear a mask or not as a whole. Dr. Fauci getting highly questioned on that earlier this week. And he did say that as a whole, as a pandemic, masks didn't make a big difference. But then Dr. Fauci pointed to individuals saying masks can make a big difference there. People like Senator Rand Paul saying that Dr. Fauci is absolutely ridiculous and needs to change his stance on the issue and kind of get in lockstep with what people like Senator Rand Paul say the science shows. Steve.
And with everything these days, it seems politics creeps into it as well. We'll be listening and watching to that very closely. Kayla Gaskins, Christine Frizzau, Scott Thuman, thank you all for your hard work. Back to you.
And right now, new research shows children's emotional health is as concerning to parents as pandemic learning loss. Now, the founders of the Speak Up Research Project says when asked for top concerns regarding their child's future, about 50% of parents cited learning loss or the need for remediation, and about the same said it was their students' social, emotional, and mental health.
So that's really interesting, because I think for some people they would think, oh, the number one thing for parents is learning loss, and actually it isn't. It's right up there, but it's equally paired with their students' emotional well-being.
And with back to school season in full swing, it can be a stressful time for families, but parents can help make the transition smoother. The National Desk, Janae Bowens explains.
Like many students across the country, 11th grader Amara Hirsch has a few nerves about this new school year.
It's just, it makes me on higher alert. I'm a lot more stressed out, even though it's just because there's so much more to think about.
Jennifer Kelman, a mental health expert with JustAnswer.com, says students feeling anxious is perfectly normal, and parents should acknowledge that and not try to fix the issue.
It might sound a little different where you could say to them, I understand how you feel. It can feel a little scary. You might feel a little nervous, and I'm here for you. We're going to talk about it, and we'll get through it together.
She also recommends starting a tradition.
The kids tend to look forward to that, and it's calming. I want to go to my favorite restaurant, or I want to make my favorite meal, or I want to read this book. Just establishing that together time.
And Amara has this advice for students.
You just have to kind of find the positive and the happy things throughout your day.
And it's normal for parents to be stressed out too. Jennifer says, be aware of your anxiety and don't put your experience on your child. In Washington, I'm Janae Bowens for the National Desk.
Still ahead here, how a Boy Scout in West Virginia is working to make custody transfers safer for kids. Plus, Business Boost, a grant giving small storefronts a facelift in one West Coast city to help bring back customers. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. From a West Virginia Boy Scout making child custody exchanges safer to drivers in Nevada struggling with flooded roads earlier this week. We're taking the pulse of America, but we start in Seattle, Washington, where a grant project aims to bring business back to the city.
When small businesses sit closed for too long, the shuttered properties can bring down the entire neighborhood. This is happening along many of the streets in Seattle's University District.
I'd say for business owners, especially small business owners, on the business side, it is a concern.
The U District Partnership is working to revitalize the neighborhood with grant money targeting vacant storefronts. A previous round of funding did wonders for this barbershop.
People like the new awning, the new painting, things like that. Everybody likes things that look nice and clean and attractive.
The new funding opportunity offers up to $100,000 for ground-level businesses to replace windows, doors, add fresh paint, or an awning.
Well, we need a heavy reconstruction. Renovate the whole place.
Safety concerns could also be addressed by clearing away the graffiti and bringing more shoppers into the area.
The idea came after Ethan Cavender went to a city council meeting and brainstormed ideas with the mayor for his Eagle Scout project, and they talked about a need for safe exchange points in the city.
My mom told me a story about a mother who was killed during a child custody exchange.
Cavender then worked to make the safe points a reality.
Me and my family and some other friends, we painted the parking spots, and the city donated the signs and posts.
Safe exchange points at both the police department and fire station are under 24/7 video surveillance.
I hope it gives the kids a little bit of comfort when they drop off and pick up children from our location. It's in an area close to the door that our officers on duty we use routinely.
I'm terrified right now. I don't know what to do. I really don't.
Another storm and heavy runoff rushing through the Las Vegas Valley streets.
I got this nice little SUV. I'm thinking it's going to have no problem getting through.
After his car stalled from driving through this puddle on Walnut Avenue.
Because I was pushing through just like how the truck did, and then all of a sudden it just said, zoop, and then I hit the gas again and said, zoop, zoop, and then next thing I know it locked up.
Both envious of those cars that made it through.
Why did you drive through that?
Because I see a lot of cars pass, I say, why not?
See, this is a smaller car right here. We're going to see how this one do. Look, another one. Made it through, Chevy. I should have bought a Chevy.
In Stephanie's yard is a front row seat to the water show.
When they make it through, we go, yeah! And we cheer and we scream, we get all excited for them. And then if they don't make it, we're like, oh, they're gonna make it, they're gonna make it. We're like, come on, come on. And then, oh, they'll die.
Looking ahead to stories making headlines this week, on Tuesday, Apple is set to unveil its next generation of iPhones. The new models are expected to feature an advanced new camera lens, but some tech experts are predicting a spike in price. A new COVID booster could be available in the U.S. as soon as this Wednesday. Right now, it's unclear which groups will be recommended the shot. And on Monday, the historic impeachment trial of Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton resumes in Austin. Paxton has pleaded not guilty to the articles of impeachment, which center on accusations of bribery and abuse of office.
It sucks.
Can I have a hug?
Sure.
I need a hug. Can I
sure.
have a hug, please?
Yeah.
Sometimes all you need is a hug. This is video from Johnson County, Kansas. After getting pulled over for speeding, the driver explained he was going through some personal challenges. The police department shared the video to social media with a message of giving grace and that every day people are going through their own battles. And that's going to do it for us on the weekend edition of the National Desk, America's News Now. Don't forget, you can catch us live from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time. Check your local listings, and you can also watch us online and catch up with the latest headlines on thenationaldesk.com. Thanks for watching the weekend edition of the National Desk. I'm Dee Gatton, and from all of us here, have a great week.